Hi guys, I've just finished making the shortbread for a millionaire shortbread. It's got to go in the oven now. I've got to wait for it to cook before I can do the next part. How good are you guys at waiting? Do you have much patience? Well, let me just put this in the oven and I'll tell you a story. So, our story is about Joseph. What do you know about Joseph? He was the 11th of 12 brothers. His dad was Jacob, who was also called Israel. And he was the favourite son because his mum was Rachel. Now, being the favourite son didn't help him out with his brothers. His dad gave him a really nice coat, and they were all a bit jealous. And he had odd dreams. He could hear from God through his dreams, and God helped him figure out what his dreams were saying. How cool is that? So, we've got a big, long story. So we're going to skip some bits, and we're going to focus on other bits. So, Joseph was in Egypt for most of his story. He started off in Canaan, but his brothers were quite mean to him and sold him to some traders. Then the traders sold him as a slave to a guy called Potiphar. But God still cared about him. God was with him and God loved him. God made things work out for Joseph every time. So he was sold to Potiphar and he worked hard for Potiphar. He did his best work and God helped him there. Soon Potiphar put Joseph in charge of his house. Everything he was in charge of. So when Potiphar went to work, it was all sorted. But then something happened. Potiphar's wife lied about Joseph, and Potiphar put Joseph in jail. He hadn't even done anything, but he was in jail. Not great. Joseph decided to keep doing the right things, even though he was in jail, which is not a great place, is it? Joseph knew that God loved him. Joseph worked in the jail and he did a really good job. So even though he was in there for a long time, he knew that God was with him, that he had nothing to worry about. And he was patient because he knew that God had good things for him, that he had a purpose there, he had a reason that he was there. Now, after he'd been in jail for quite a few years, two people came into jail that weren't very happy. They were workers for the Pharaoh, the kind of king of Egypt. One of them was the Pharaoh's drink taster, and one was the chief baker. Now, both of these guys had disappointed the Pharaoh, so that's why he put them in jail. And they had dreams when they were in jail. And guess what? Joseph knew all about dreams, and God helped him work out what they were about. So the drinks taster and the chief baker both told their dreams to Joseph, and he could tell them what it meant. Now, the baker, his story didn't really end that happily, but the drinks taster, 3 days later, in accordance with what Joseph said about his dream, he was returned back to the Pharaoh's court. Now Joseph said, "Could you remember about me? Because I've helped you out, and it would be great if you could help me out. I I'm in jail and I've done nothing wrong. Can you remember me? But guess what? He didn't. So we've got to skip ahead for 2 more years. 2 years Joseph was in jail. And the Pharaoh woke up one morning and had had a dream. He had no idea what it was about. He asked the sorcerers of the area, he asked all the clever people, all the wise people. No one knew what this dream meant. Went to sleep. Next day, had another dream. It was exactly the same sort of dream. So confusing. Now, the king's drinks taster remembered someone in prison, someone in jail. It was Joseph. Joseph could help them. So they called Joseph, and Joseph said, "My God will help me understand your dream. Tell me what it is." So they had 7 cows. Okay, do you dream about cows? 7 big fat cows coming out of the river. Oh, nice dream so far. But then 7 skinny cows came out of the river and ate the fat cows up. Oh, that's a bit weird. And the second dream that they had was about the grain in the fields. But it was the same type of thing. 7 nice, big, fat, juicy, lots of grain. 7 really skinny, and they replaced the big, fat grain. "What does my dream mean?" said Pharaoh. Well, Joseph prayed and he figured it out. He said, we're going to have 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. If we're really careful with all the food and the grain that we get in our years of plenty, we'll be able to survive the years of famine. What an awesome, clever idea. Now, Joseph knew. Now, the point of the story isn't that Joseph was awesome because he knew what was going to happen. And as a result, he got put in charge of everything, from jail to being put in charge of everything. But that's not the point. The point is that Joseph had a really cool talent that he knew he had and he loved God for when he was a boy, when he was 17. And yet, he had to wait and wait and wait when he was in jail. He helped out a little bit with the baker and the drinks taster, but then he didn't get remembered about. He had to wait. He had to be patient for his time to come, for when his talents were going to be used and they were going to make the world a better place. He waited until he was 30. So can you imagine that? From 17 to 30 before the Pharaoh listened to his interpretation of the dream and they had a great plan going forwards. Now there's quite a bit more to the story, but I think we'll leave that for another time. I want you to think about patience. Oh, now actually, time's gone really quickly. Should we check the oven for my shortbread? Now that is looking good. See you guys later.